After years of waiting, it's finally here. That's right, we're getting some of the biggest refines of the entire year, including Ashera and Nott. Speaking of Nott, let's start with her refine and remix. We have Rim Faxi. This is going to grant speed +3. You're going to get Pathfinder, so the same effect she had in her base weapon. If her HP is going to go 25%, she'll also grant Incited to all allies within 2 spaces, but not herself notably. And then also if her HP is going to go 25%, she'll get all stats +5. She'll also get a bonus to each stat, and it will be based off the highest bonus on each stat between herself and all allies within 2 spaces. This just allows her to get around like lull or dull effects, so that's a nice little upgrade there as well. Then if the foe initiates combat, or if their HP is going to go 75% at start of combat, she'll inflict another attack and speed defense -4 on the foe during combat, so just some more stats. She'll also inflict another penalty on the foe's attack speed and defense equal to the highest penalty on each of those stats between foe and then any foes within 2 spaces. She gets 7 flat damage reduction against the foe's first attack, and she gets special acceleration. Now before we talk about how good this refine is, or how not good it is, let's talk about the remix. So we have Moon, Twin, Wing, and this is essentially like a combination of like physical no follow-up and like the tier 4 speed-based damage reduction skills. So what this has is it has Phantom Speed, but doesn't have a full +10, it only has a +7. And then if her HP is going to go 25%, she'll inflict -5 attack speed and defense on the foe. She'll get 10% true damage based off her attack. She'll reduce the foe's damage reduction by 50%, so DR halving. And then lastly, if her speed is greater than the foe's speed, she can get up to 50% damage reduction. So overall, how well did Nott come out? I'm gonna be completely honest, I think this refine and remix is kinda crap. It just doesn't really help her all that much as a defense mythic, or even in summer duels as well. The thing about Dagger, her sister, right, is that she got a really powerful refine, and she's like one of the top units in summer duels because she can hand up Pathfinder to other allies. Now obviously this won't work exactly the same on defense because ally supports don't trigger, but there was a way to do it, right? There's a way to like do a stat condition or something like that, and they decided not to go that route. And so what they really focused on was just giving Nott like a ton of different stats, and it's not all that synergistic, right? It doesn't really make her all that much of a standout on defense. Essentially what she is getting here is she's giving out some inside support. Inside's not bad, but it's not really all that many stats, so it's like a little support, but really not that much. And then the other thing is that she herself has like the bonus doubler effect, bonus doubler 4 effect, which is nice. But then she also has one that like inflicts based off penalties, but she herself doesn't inflict penalties. And so like it's very anti-synergistic, right? Like I guess like they were like basing this off the fact that she had like attack speed menace in her base kit, but no one uses menace, and like that's really, really bad. It's like you just don't want to use menace ever. You really want to use like cancel control on defense. And so like this weapon is just all over the place. They kind of just like slammed in together like a whole bunch of nice effects and like called it a day. Like so she obviously is going to be more tanky. She's going to be able to hit a lot harder. She's going to get through damage reduction. She can like do a really nice godlike reflexes build now because she has special acceleration, which is nice. But she just doesn't really offer much to your defense team. She's pretty much offering the exact same amount she was before, where she's just a Pathfinder support. But now she's a better combat unit, which is like, it's okay. It means that she'll be better against Gale Force teams, but that's pretty much it. So I'm pretty down on this refine and remix. I definitely think Dagger's refine and remix is like so much better, it's not even funny. It's like 3 times better than this refine remix, which is just a bit sad. Okay, let's move on to our other Lance units in this batch. We have Galle, and Galle has Wyvern Lance, and this inflicts attack and defense -5 and guard on all foes within 3 rows or 3 columns centered on Galle himself, and those foes suffer guaranteed follow-up attacks. He also restores 7 HP to unit after combat. So this is a pretty cool effect. It's very similar to something like Ashera has, right? Where you're inflicting those stat debuffs and guard. But in this situation, you're getting like a crux effect. So you're getting that guaranteed follow-up attack, which is really nice. You're kind of trading that for like the dual attack defense effect that Ashera gives out. So it's kind of like he's like a Lance version of Ashera, which is pretty solid. Then we have his actual refine, where if the foe initiates combat, or if his HP is greater than equals 75% at start of combat, he'll inflict another attack and defense -5. He'll also inflict a penalty on the foe's attack and defense equal to a 15% of his visible defense at start of combat. So a very nice daunt effect there. He'll also get special acceleration. And then lastly, he gets a dual attack and defense effect, but only for himself. So at the end of the day, I think this is a pretty solid refine and remix. You essentially get Lance Ashera, who offers similar support, but not exactly the same, and they could even work together if you want to go for that route, as that is some like major daunts you're handing out. Now the major thing between him and Ashera is that Ashera will eventually, hopefully, get attack defense crux, and so he'll kind of have a full kit that offers all the synergistic effects. Well, it's not necessarily sure that we'll get an effect with Galle that does like the dual attack defense effect on like a 3 row or 3 column. So we'll have to see about that. But in return, Galle can offer other types of support, such as like Breath of Life or something like that, depending on where you want to put him at. So overall, very solid refine for Galle, very nice, especially as a free play unit, so I'm pretty happy with this one. Okay, let's move over to male Kris, and this is a bit of a boring refine. We have Blade of Shadow, so this essentially has Slang, and then if foe initiates combat, or if their HP is greater than 75%, once again, you'll neutralize your own penalties, you'll inflict attack speed defense -5 on them, and you get full tempo. Then we go over to the refine, and if your HP is greater than 25%, you get an additional +4 to all stats, you get 40% brave damage reduction against the foe's first attack, you get 20% true damage based off your speed during combat, and also whenever you deal damage, you heal 7 HP. Now, if that refine sounds familiar, it's because it's exactly the same as female Kris's refine that we got like a month or 2 months back. And so overall, I do find this a bit boring, and the fact that they're almost exactly the same. I mean, just like I said with female Kris, it's a solid refine. It overall makes Kris a pretty better unit, and you could definitely make him work if you invest enough into him. But it's just not anything like insane, and it's just boring that's exactly the same. They could at least change like one effect or something to make them like parallels, but I don't know. They decided not to do that. Now, the one other thing I want to bring up, of course, is that Kris is a sword unit, and swords are extremely competitive, while lance infantry are a little bit less competitive, so that is one major downside he does have. But overall, he pretty much will perform about the same, so if you're a big Kris fan, he definitely is workable. Okay, let's move on to the worst refine of the batch. We got Mustafa. So we have Pledgy and War Axe. Essentially what this will do is that start of turn, if Mustafa is within 2 spaces of an ally, he's going to grant a visible defense and res +6 buff to himself and those allies. He'll also give out an effect that denies follow-up attacks. So nice little support there. And then if he initiates combat, or if there's an ally within 2 spaces, he'll get additional +4 all stats, and he'll get a guaranteed follow-up attack. Then we move over to the refine, and once again, if he has that HP condition, he'll get another 4 to all stats. He'll get true damage equal to 15% of the foe's attack during combat, and he'll get 40% damage reduction against the foe's first attack. So I don't think there's much to say here. I think everybody kind of knows this refine completely sucks. These effects are just not that great. These are refines you would expect to see like 2 years ago, and it would be pretty good back then, but now it is just completely outclassed. This effect essentially does nothing. You're almost better just using an arcane axe. Like, that's how far bad this really is. The ability to deny follow-up attacks as a buff support really isn't all that great, because typically most nukes nowadays have some kind of no follow-up, either like offensive no follow-up or full no follow-up, or they can even have like a guaranteed follow-up attack, and because Mustafa is not that fast, they can outspeed him and get that guaranteed follow-up attack anyway. So like, really, you're not getting much out of this. I think this refine overall is just really underwhelming, and Mustafa is just not going to be really worth using unless he's like your absolute favorite. Okay, let's move over to one of my favorite units from Tellius, Shinon. So we have double bow. This has slang. You have effective against flying as usual, and then if you only have one unit next to you or none, you'll get +5 to all stats. You'll get close counter. You also get anti-guard, and also whenever you deal damage to a foe during combat, you'll heal 7 HP. We then move on to the actual refine, and then once again, if your HP is greater than or equal to 25%, you get an additional +4 to all stats. You'll also inflict a penalty on the foe's attack and speed and defense equal to 8 minus number the allies around you. So essentially, Shinon wants to be solo, which is very much fitting of his personality. You'll also get flat damage reduction against the foe's first attack equal to 20% of his speed, which is very, very nice. And this is Brave DR. And then lastly, he'll also get like an ice mirror effect where he can reflect damage back at the foe based off all the total damage he reduces. And so this is a pretty nice refine. It's definitely nothing like insane, but it does make Shinon better at what he wants to do, which is like be a mixed phase archer. The ability to have close counter, get a nice amount of stats. The anti-guard makes it so it's very easy to get him his specials going. So if you want to go for like a Deadeye build, it's going to make it Deadeye very consistent, while also making Shinon pretty tough to take down, as he does have flat damage reduction, which is really, really nice. Like a very nice set amount, and he's going to hit back really hard with the ice mirror effect as well. Now when it comes to his actual builds, he does have a few options. The funniest thing is that Lagu's Friend 4 on him is really, really good, which is, if you know Shinon's personality, you know how ironic that really is. But he can make very good use of that. The only bad part about that is that he can't really use Deadeye with that build, as Deadeye is a 3 cooldown special and he has Slang. So you're going to want to use a bigger cooldown special, something like Dragon Fang or like Ether even, or even Miracle. He can make use of all those effects. The thing with that also is like trying to either implement the Ike Ring to get more damage reduction, so he's a little bit more bulky and difficult to take down, or going for the Marth Ring to get even more consistent specials. So that's pretty good options. Overall, he has a nice amount of build flexibility, and I think this allows Shinon to hit really, really hard while also being pretty tough to take down. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this refine, and I definitely think Shinon's going back to like his peak days where when he came out, he was a complete menace, and now with this refine, he can be too, with enough investment. Okay, let's move on to the final lance of this group. We have Summer Ingrid, and man, there must be an Ingrid dev, because this refine is absolutely insane. So we have Starpoint Lance, this grants speed +3. You also get an additional +5 to all stats during combat. You get no follow-up, and if it's your first combat in each phase, you reduce the foe's non-special damage reduction by 80%. If it is like the second or third combat in that phase, it's 40%. She'll also heal 10 HP after combat. Then when we come to the actual refine, she gets Slaying, and then at start of turn, if she's within 2 spaces of a melee armor, a melee infantry, or a melee flying unit, she'll grant a visible attack and speed +6, +1 movement, Canto 1, and special acceleration. And that's not all. If she initiates combat or she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she'll get an additional +4 to all stats, and she gets true damage equal to 20% of her speed, but it doesn't work with AoEs. So holy crap, Ingrid went from having one of the most meme weapons of all time, where it was some stats and some healing once per phase, to having one of the most busted refines we've seen in a very long time. This refine is absolutely stacked. Not only does it make Ingrid a fantastic unit, giving her a lot more power to cut through foes without having to rely on no quarter either, also giving her things like no follow-up, so it means it's difficult to take her down, a ton of stats, and true damage so she's hitting harder. She even has Slaying, so her specials are more consistent. But the really insane thing is they offered her a level of support we haven't really seen before from melee flyers. Now, one of the big things we've seen recently is that you run like the Rain Snap build and you run the Soaring Echo skill, and it allows you to have extra mobility while having warping. But with Ingrid, we actually take that one step farther, as you're not only getting the extra movement, you're getting visible bonuses, you're getting Canto 1, so you're offering that big time mobility, and special acceleration, which is absolutely massive. And so now we have this unit who has one of the most powerful C skills upgraded in their weapon. And so it opens up her C slot for a lot of options like Soaring Guidance or Guidance 4, or even like something like Deadly Miasma if you want her to be better in combat. And that's not even counting her Echo skill, where you can also pick up and put on her as well. So like she just has an absolutely ridiculous amount of options when it comes to build versatility. Not only that, she's an amazing Gale Force unit. You knew I was going to say it. But like, she is just absolutely fantastic at Gale Force because she can run something like Wings of Mercy 4, and she's not really missing out on all that much. She already has DR Shredding in her weapon, so she should be able to hit pretty hard. She has Slaying, which is a really big deal, making it to be easier to hit that Gale Force. But most importantly, she's going to offer some really valuable support to the entire team, right? Being able to give out that extra movement, the visible stats, Canto 1, so you can move around during the Gale Force, but most importantly, special acceleration is a massive deal. We saw Young Minerva come out last year with her refine, and she was able to give out special acceleration while being a Gale Force unit, and she worked really, really well. But I'm sorry to say, Ingrid's just going to do her job way, way better. And so we have a fantastic Gale Force support unit, and we also have the option of having a great melee flying SD unit as well, who could offer a ton of support while being a deadly threat herself. And so I am just ridiculously impressed with this refine. I think it's fantastic, and man, if you are an Ingrid fan, you came up big. Okay, let's move on to the final refine, the one that you've all been waiting for, the one I've been waiting for, Ashera. We have Order Sentis. This grants attack +3, and at start of combat if her HP is greater than equal to 25%, or she has a bonus active on herself. She'll get all stats +5 during combat. She'll also get an additional bonus to her attack during combat, where she checks the bonuses on herself and all allies within 3 spaces, and then she multiplies it by 1.5. So like for example, let's say you have +6 to all stats on Ashera, that's 24 times 1.5, that's 36 attack. That is a lot of attack. We also get some damage reduction equal to 30% against the foe's first attack, and this is Brave DR. Then we move on to her actual refine, where if she initiates combat, or if the foe is ranged, she gets an additional all stats +4. She gets flat damage reduction based off the total bonuses on herself or allies within 3 spaces, and she gets half of that. So let's say, once again, you have 24 visible bonuses, you get 12 flat DR. That's a lot of flat DR. She also inflicts guard on the foe, and she heals 7 HP after combat. Now let's move on to her actual remix. So we have Order's Restraint, and with this is essentially at start of turn, she's going to grant a visible attack and res +6, no panic, no follow-up, and Hexblade to allies within 3 spaces for 1 turn. And then also, if the number of allies within 3 spaces of herself is greater than or equal to 3, she'll also grant herself attack and res +6 as a visible buff, no panic, no follow-up, and damage reduction halving. And this will last for 1 turn. And then lastly, if there's an ally within 3 spaces, she'll get an additional +4 to all stats. Okay, so let's talk about Ashera as a total package and what she's really offering and how good this refine really is. So first of all, let's talk about her support effects. So if Orders Restraint and my original reaction to this was not the best, and the reason why is that this works really, really well in Ether Raids, but it's not amazing outside of Ether Raids in my opinion, and the reason why is because it has such a high condition for the amount of allies around you, right? Now, in Ether Raids, you should have 6 units on your team, and none of those 6 units should be dying, unless you're a dirty sack player, and then I don't like you. I'm half kidding, not really. So in most situations, you'll be able to get the support out, and this is some really nice support. No panic is always very good. No follow-up is very, very solid on a lot of speedy Omni tanks because a lot of times they don't have it in their weapon anymore. And so being able to outsource it to a mythic in particular is really, really nice. And Hexblade gives you that extra oomph to knock out some foes. So very nice there. Now when it comes to her actual effect, buffing up herself, the condition is really easy to hit in Ether Raids, and it's going to allow her to hit really, really hard, right? It's going to give her the visible bonuses, it's going to give her NFU, which is nice because she is fast, but most importantly, it gives her that damage reduction halving, which means that her B slot is more open and more flexible to different options. Now, the big problem is when you look outside of Ether Raids, like in something like Summoner Duels, it's not always easy to have that many allies around you within 3 spaces, and also a lot of times you don't have 3 allies at all, because as the fight goes on, you do lose allies, so that means really, realistically, you can only lose like 1 ally, and after that, this weapon turns off. So that is something to consider. But overall, I do think this is a pretty powerful remix in the context of Ether Raids. Now, when I come over to her actual refine, she definitely got a big power upgrade when it comes to her like blade tome effect. Being able to get 150% of bonuses is insane. Because you have to think of it this way, right? So we have Ashera's base attack. Let's say she's maxed out. She has 65 attack without including any skills. So just that. But then you add 36 to that, right? So that's already 101 attack just with that effect. And that's not even counting the actual visible bonus of attack +6 as well, right? That's an additional 6 attacks. That's 107 attack just off of that. And that's not even including like, you know, her A skill or any other effects. And so that's really, really powerful. Like she's going to be able to hit extremely hard. Now the thing is that is very nice, but there are just so many ways to get around like big hitting units now, like with Emblem Ike, right, having just a ton of non-pierceable DR. But one way to overpower that is just to offer a ridiculous amount of damage, which Ashera seems to be taking that route. The other effects in her weapon are solid, but they're mostly like focused on being a mage tank, right? She's getting damage reduction, she's getting flat damage reduction, which is really nice, and some healing and guard. Overall, these are nice effects. They definitely make her stronger, but it doesn't make her like the most powerful nuke. So she's kind of in a weird position where she's part nuke, part mage tank, and part support unit. So she's kind of fulfilling a ton of roles at the same time, and she does all of them pretty well, but not like ridiculously well, right? And so I do think this is a pretty powerful refine, especially in Ether Raids. I definitely think it's possible to use her in Summer Duels as well, as she can hit really hard, especially with some of the like very lethal builds. She's a very good user of Legoose Friend 4. What a surprise, right? Not having Slaying actually works out in her favor, as it does allow her to run Flare, which is really, really good with her, as it allows her to have a ton of healing. But I think the really big thing about her is being a tank in Ether Raids currently. And the reason why is because we have Emblem Celica. And Emblem Celica is just running around crazy, and being able to warp into your back line and kill things is really annoying. And so one of the ways you can deal with this is by putting in more than 1 tank into your team, right? Like I've been running like Ike and Altina, and I let Altina kind of chill in the back to bait Celica sometimes. But the thing with that is that your mythics are kind of always vulnerable. So having a mythic like Ashera who can tank other mages is very, very valuable, because not only can she offer support to the entire team, she's offering support to your Omni tank, right? But she's also being able to just kind of stand out there, and if Celica wants to jump in and attack her, she'll die, right? And so that's the really big thing here. I think being able to be a tank on Ether Raids offense is really nice right now, especially as a mythic. And so having all that role compression into 1 mythic is definitely a big upgrade. And so going from where Ashera was before, where she was just a no panic bot really with some visible bonuses, to now being a very powerful mage tank nuke, She's definitely taken some massive strides forward, and I do think overall this is a very nice refine and remix. Is it perfect? No. I was really hoping she would give out like treachery support or like do treachery herself to kind of be the opposite of Yune, but that didn't end up happening. But either way, I think this is a very nice upgrade overall, and it definitely does Ashera justice. Okay, let's move on to the final part of the video. Who won the Refine War of July? So in the top of S tier, I'm going to have Ashera and Ingrid. I do think Ingrid overall got the better refine, as it just is an insane refine that gives a lot of effects. But I do think Ashera will overall be the better unit, as she is a mythic, so she has a specific place she fits into the meta and will continue to fit into the meta in the future. She also fits into more strategies and roles. She can be a really good unit on tank teams as well as even Gale Force teams, as she can just Wings of Mercy in and nuke something, which is also very nice. And so I do think overall Ashera is going to be the best unit out of this refined batch, even though Ingrid might have the better refine. In A tier, we're going to have Shinon and Galle. Both of them got very solid refines that make them very powerful and unique. Shinon is now a really good mixed phase bow, which we don't have too many of, and Galle is essentially a Blue Lance version of Ashdard, who we've seen how powerful Ashdard can be. He is actually just ridiculous, especially alongside his son, Soren. Then we're going to have B tier with Kris and Nott. Both of them got solid refines. They definitely made them better units, but nothing really phenomenal, nothing that's going to make them stand out, nothing that's going to make them meta, but they are both definitely usable with enough investment. And then down in C tier, we're going to have Mustafa, and Mustafa really just lost this Refine War by a large margin. You got a Refine that's essentially like 2 years old, and it really doesn't offer anything unique or powerful, and so we're going to put him down in the last place. He just really didn't do anything special. Now with that said, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these refines are your favorite? Which of these units are you going to be building? What kind of builds are you going to be running on them? And where are you going to be using them? I would love to hear about it. Personally, I have already refined Ashera, Shinon, and Ingrid, and I think they're going to be fantastic. I have a lot of plans for them. I'm very excited that I can finally use my plus 10 Ashera in either race, and she's actually going to offer some really powerful support. With that said, as always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later with more Fire Emblem Heroes.